Imagine you are sitting by a small, flickering fire 40,000 years ago. The world outside the circle of light is pitch black and filled with cold shadows. You hear a twig snap and see a pair of glowing eyes. This is a wolf, the most successful predator on the planet, and it is very hungry. But instead of lunging for your throat, it just sits there and blinks. It smells something better than you. The reindeer bones. This tiny moment of hesitation changed everything for our species. Welcome to the first Why, where we break down the biggest mysteries of our past into simple pieces. Today, we are looking at the greatest biological hack in history. We are talking about how a lethal killer became a loyal companion. For a long time, we thought humans simply grabbed wolf pups and forced them to be pets. But the truth is much more accidental and far more interesting. It all started with a genetic event called the Deep Split. Science used to say dogs were only 15,000 years old. However, new evidence from early 2026 shows that the ancestors of dogs and wolves parted ways much earlier. This split happened between 27,000 and 40,000 years ago. During this time, humans were nomadic hunter-gatherers moving across Europe and Anatolia. We were constantly on the move, leaving trails of trash and food scraps behind us. For a hungry wolf, a human camp was basically a free buffet, but approaching a group of humans was a massive risk. Most wolves were too terrified or too aggressive to get close to the heat of the fire. Their stress levels, or cortisol, would spike the moment they saw a human campfire. These aggressive wolves stayed in the dark wild hunting their own prey. However, a few unique individuals were born with a slightly different brain chemistry. They had naturally lower cortisol levels, making them less prone to fight or flight reactions. These were the outliers of the pack. They were just brave enough to hang around the outskirts of the human camps for hours on end. While the aggressive wolves were out in the cold chasing massive mammoths, these calmer wolves were eating high-protein leftovers. This was the birth of the Commensal pathway. Commensal basically means sharing the same dinner table with us. These wolves weren't being trained by us yet. They were domesticating themselves. The ones who didn't growl at us got the best scraps. Over many generations, this created a perfect cycle of survival for the friendly ones to thrive. The calmest wolves had the most energy because they didn't have to hunt as hard as the others. They survived longer and had more puppies who inherited that same chill personality. This wasn't a choice made by humans with a plan. It was a simple trade. The wolves traded their predatory edge for a steady supply of easy calories. They were slowly turning their backs on the wild forever. As these wolves spent time near our fires, something stranger happened. Their DNA started to react to their new lifestyle in ways no one could have predicted. They weren't just getting friendlier in their heads. They were physically changing, losing the sharp features of the deep forest for something much softer. But how does a change in behavior rewrite your bones and your fur? It turns out being a good boy actually changed the shape of their ears and their coats, and it all starts with a secret genetic code. This biological trade-off is known as Domestication Syndrome. Scientists didn't truly understand this until a massive experiment started in Siberia in 1959. Researcher Dmitry Belyaev wanted to see if you could turn a wild animal into a pet just by picking the nicest ones. He used silver foxes. Every generation, he only bred the foxes that didn't hiss or bite. He was selecting for one thing only: a total lack of fear aggression. Within decades, something bizarre happened. The foxes didn't just become friendly. Their physical bodies started to transform in ways Belyaev never specifically asked for. They grew floppy ears and curly tails, patches of white fur, called piebald spots, started appearing on their coats as if they were being painted. Their snouts even got shorter. When you dial down stress hormones, you accidentally scramble the cells that build the rest of the body. These are neural crest cells. They control the fight or flight response and physical traits like skull shape and fur pigment. By picking the calmest animals, we were changing their chemical blueprint. Modern geneticists eventually found a specific culprit for this behavior, the SORCS1 gene. This gene is a master switch for friendliness. It rewired the ancestors of our dogs to be biologically incapable of seeing us as enemies. As their bones softened, their brains tuned into a very specific frequency, us. Think about how you interact with a dog. If you point at a hidden treat, a puppy will almost always look where you are pointing. A study from Duke University proved that 8-week-old puppies do this naturally. They are born with a manual for human body language. You don't even have to train them. They are biologically tuned to watch our hands and faces for clues about the world. Try this with a wolf, and the result is different. Even if a wolf is raised by humans, it will usually ignore your pointing gesture. To a wolf, your hand is just furniture moving. They don't look for meaning in your movements because their brains aren't socialized to us. This cognitive gap is massive. While wolves are geniuses at being wild predators, dogs are geniuses at being our social partners. They traded their survivalist edge for a seat at our table. This deal was finalized deep in history, before we ever planted grain. While our ancestors were nomadic hunter-gatherers, these creatures were already learning to read our moves. They were becoming an extension of the human family. We see this in the dirt. Archaeological sites from 14,000 years ago show humans and dogs buried together in the same graves. In Bonn-Oberkassel, a puppy survived a deadly illness for weeks. It lived because humans were nursing it and keeping it hydrated. This wasn't a working relationship. This was the birth of care-based bonding, where we looked at them and felt a need to protect. But why? Why did we start treating another species like our own children? The answer isn't just about friendship. It's because dogs eventually developed a biological hack that targets our most basic parental instincts. They literally learned how to talk to our brains. This evolution went beyond being tame. They were developing a way to hijack the human heart through a trick that no wolf can replicate. We're about to see how a single facial muscle creates a bond so strong it's chemically identical to the love for a child. This trick is built right into their anatomy. A muscle called the LAM exists in dogs but is completely missing in wolves, allowing them to lift their inner eyebrows for that vulnerable look. When a dog makes this face, they aren't just being cute. They are mimicking the facial expressions of human infants to trigger our deepest instincts. Our brains see those big, sad eyes and immediately want to protect them. This isn't just a physical change. It is a profound chemical hijacking of the human brain. When you look into a dog's eyes, your brain releases a massive spike of oxytocin. This is the same hormone that bonds mothers to infants. Dogs are the only non-human species known to have tapped into this specific neural pathway. It creates a feedback loop where both human and dog feel a rush of love. We found a family member. We see the proof of this emotional shift in the ancient record. That grave in Germany, where the man, woman, and puppy were buried together 14,000 years ago, shows the bond was final. The wolf was gone, and the dog had officially come home. Scans of that puppy's remains revealed that it suffered from severe canine distemper for many weeks. In the wild, a sick animal like that would have been abandoned or killed by predators immediately. But this little dog was kept alive through intensive human nursing. Our ancestors were cleaning it and giving it water, while it was too weak to move or eat. This wasn't a working relationship where the dog had to earn its keep. This was the earliest proof of a care-based bond fueled by pure empathy. 2,000 years later, in modern Israel, another burial shows an elderly human resting a hand on a puppy. Even facing death, they wanted their companion nearby. The bond had become strong enough to transcend the grave. This transformation happened long before we ever planted a single seed of grain or built a permanent home. While we were still nomadic hunters in a frozen world, these wolves were changing. They traded their fierce independence for a spot by the fire and a piece of our hearts. The Belyaev experiment in Siberia showed us that this process can happen faster than we imagined. By selecting for friendliness, researchers saw foxes develop floppy ears in decades. Behavioral selection rewrites the genetic code and physical appearance. The SORCS1 gene became a key driver of this friendliness toward humans over many generations. As their stress levels dropped, their bodies began to look less like killers. The terrifying predator of the woods was being replaced by the loyal good boy. Today, an 8-week-old puppy can understand a human pointing gesture without any prior training. Even wolf pups raised by people often ignore these basic social cues. Dogs are biologically tuned to our frequency. They didn't just evolve to survive. They evolved to understand us better than any other creature on this entire planet. Our history is the story of two different species choosing to walk the same path. Every time your dog looks at you, you see 15,000 years. You feel the result of a biological miracle that turned a competitor into a soulmate. We are never truly alone because they once chose to stay. If you found this look into our shared past fascinating, hit the subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs to know their dog is a biological genius. Join the first why as we explore human history. Check out our other videos on how we survived the harshest environments. Thanks for watching, and always remember to stay curious.